Bruce, I've got to say that your news about compulsory Bible study in Tennessee is pretty fucking depressing. I'd always assumed that humanity's descent back into the Dark Ages, now the fall of our civilization, would be the result of some huge natural disaster or nuclear war or something like that. I didn't for a moment ever suspect that people would willingly give up knowledge and embrace ignorance. And you just got to think of what's going to come next. We're going to introduce a program where, as well as immunising kids against disease, we're going to give them lobotomies so that we immunise their minds against critical thinking. There's so much wrong with that it's hard to know where to start, really. So I'm not going to bother. That guy who came up to you at work and told you that people in your town don't like those kinds of opinions being expressed, do you think he's really just a perfect example of the hypocrisy that these people display every day? And their ignorance as well. I mean, I'm not a US citizen, but I know that by and large the US is founded by people who left their countries of origin precisely because they wanted to escape persecution from other people who didn't like those kinds of opinions being expressed. So how fucking un-American is that? It's just amazing that people seem to misinterpret, or they don't quite grasp what freedom of speech actually is. And so many of them, they've got this view that they can say whatever they like because they have this right of free speech, but that civilised behaviour requires a little bit of decorum from everybody else, just in case you offend someone. And they just don't seem to grasp the concept that freedom of speech isn't about not being offended, and it's certainly not about being able to say whatever the fuck you like, because freedom of speech certainly doesn't entitle people to spread hate or to threaten or to intimidate. So this guy's mindset, if his mindset is that it's perfectly acceptable for him to approach you in your workplace and tell you that you're not allowed to express your opinion, but he's perfectly free to come and express his and threaten you, or if not directly threatening you, then deliver an implied threat to you in your workplace where you are constrained from responding back fully, then he is a fuckwit. These people just don't seem to understand that a civilised society requires that its population is tolerant in addition to having freedom of expression, and that freedom of expression can't be allowed to harm anybody else. And just because you take offence at what somebody says, then that doesn't constitute harm. The fact is that there are a wide diversity of people around, and sometimes people are going to say things that you don't agree with, and they're going to say things that you don't like, and people just have to accept that that's the price you pay for freedom. Sometimes people say things that hurt your feelings, but boo fucking who, eh? I'll give you an example. There are plenty of people in the UK who believe that homosexuality is wrong, and I'm not just talking about religious people here. They're perfectly entitled to hold that belief, and they're perfectly entitled to say, I believe homosexuality is wrong, if they want to. What they're not entitled to do is say something on the line that all fucking queers are disgusting, should be rounded up in death camps and put down. One of these is an expression of an opinion, and the other is just hate. And the difference between the two is self-evident to anybody with any kind of critical thinking skills at all. And that really brings me on to the point that I wanted to make at the end, which is that it's what I see as one of the huge dangers of religion, and just, especially the religious thinking that's based purely on scripture. It's this cherry picking and selective reinterpretation of ideas, and that coupled with the actual magnitude of the suspension of disbelief and the suspension of critical thought processes that are required so that people believe this rot in the first place, it kind of just leaks out into other areas of the thought process and contaminates people's brains, and it impairs their ability to make any kind of rational judgment. And the thing that worries me most about that, this suspension of rational thought process, is that by its nature it just leads on to justify all sorts of crazy behaviour, and you very easily reach the point where there isn't any kind of atrocity or deed that is too awful to consider completely justified if you're doing it for God. And in our society, you've got people all over the place who are members of these Abrahamic death cults, who actually welcome the idea of human death as being a positive step, because they believe that when you die, it leads on to a better life after this one. And these are the people who've got their finger on the nuclear trigger, so they've got the ability to make their desires a reality. So we should be worried about that, I reckon. What else? Oh, yeah, the legislature stuff. I know that you feel really, really strongly about all this Christian bullshit that's making its way into the statute books where you live. And I think it's really great that you're prepared to stand up and do something about it rather than just sit back and keep quiet until it's all too late. But what I would say is that I do think sometimes discretion is the better part of valour, and that doesn't mean that you give up, and it doesn't mean that they win. It just means that perhaps you live to fight another day. I have to say that I think approaching somebody in their car in a country where people are permitted to carry firearms, and some of them actually do, is perhaps not the best idea. So be careful. Some of these people are not playing with a full deck, and it's best not to antagonise them too much. And that's not because they're right. It's because they're basically as crazy as a shithouse rat with rabies, and you should give them a wide berth if you can. That's about it, really. I'll talk to you later.